Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Creating a Collaborative Editorial Calendar webinar. My name is Brian Servino. I'm the Product Marketing Manager at Trello, and today I'm joined by our support specialist, Michelle Earhart. So the goal of this webinar is to introduce a couple of Trello boards that you can use with your content team and guest bloggers to create a visual collaborative workflow. So during this webinar, I'll be going over the following: creating an editorial calendar board, a guest blogger board, setting up collaborative workflows, and go over some Trello tips and tricks to help you out in the process. After the presentation, I'll be glad to answer any questions about these boards and how you can customize them to your team's unique needs. If you have any questions, please type them into the GoToWebinar question box, and I'll be addressing as many as possible during the time allotted with help from Michelle. You can also email any questions to support@trello.com, and our support team will be glad to answer any questions that you have. Also, I want to let you know that I will be recording today's webinar and will email a copy of the recording to all attendees and registrants. And finally, I'd like to give a really big shout out to our content manager at Trello, Lauren Moon, who is the one that developed these boards that we use internally ourselves at Trello. So let's get started. So aside from using Trello to organize our editorial pipeline, we rely on a few other crucial tools that I'll be mentioning during today's webinar. For team communication, we use Slack for chat and Appearin for video chat. For writing and managing content, we use Google Drive, Google Docs, and Evernote. To create forms for our guest blogger submissions, we use Jotform and WordPress as our content management system. Also, I want to mention that while this webinar is focused on creating content for our blog, the same workflows could be applied to other content marketing needs such as ebooks, white papers, etc. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Trello blog. If not, you're missing out. But what I want to do is go over basically today how an article goes from an idea to being published here. So we rely on two boards for our editorial calendar, our main internal board and our guest blogger board. And so first I'd like to go over the workflow for our internal editorial board. It starts with a list of repositories, researching, articles we're writing, editing, making graphics, laying out posts, publishing posts, article ideas, and guest bloggers. So on this board, we have our first list that acts as a resource for our team. The next list cover, as I mentioned, kind of the higher level aspects of creating content through the publishing stage. And then we have the list for article ideas all the way on the right. We prefer to keep it off to the right so it doesn't distract us from the editorial pipeline. And then once again, this internal list is just a way to keep track of our guest bloggers that we work with. So on the things to keep in mind list, we start with a few checklist templates that we copy to each new blog postcard to make sure that we have a consistent process for writing, publishing, and promoting content. I'd recommend kind of keeping a template card like this for really any tasks that you're going to be repeating frequently. Whether you choose to, copy this card and make a new card with the blog post title and put it into your researching list, or if you just want to actually copy the checklist when you create new cards. Those are two ways to go about this. But just making sure that as you develop a process and you've refined that process, having checklists is a great way to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. So next on this list is our blogging guidelines, which include our guidelines for tone and voice. We have them linked here via Google Drive. So at Trello, we encourage anyone at the company to submit ideas and write posts for the blog. So having specific guidelines established for new writers can be really helpful. And as I mentioned, this is attached via the Google Drive Powerup, which makes it convenient for anyone at the company to either access the document through this Trello board or through our shared Google Drive folders. We also have a few other things on our resources board. For instance, we established a quick mnemonic device called Drift that acts as a quick reference for article ideas and posts. But just really fast, 5 questions we can ask ourselves before we write a blog post. Is this something that'll be shared? Is it going to be distribution of content? Is it relevant? Does it fit into the theme of the blog? Is it inspiring? Does it make work or life better? Fresh is a unique tone of voice. We don't want to be rehashing something that's just been covered over and over in the past. And timely, is the post relevant, to our product or to current thought leadership trends? The remainder of our cards cover our social media policy, since sometimes content managers will help out with social. We also have a card for keeping an ongoing list of individuals and companies that have written or spoken about Trello in the past, in case we want to reach out to them for a quote. And we also keep a card with an attachment to any blog post performance data. So we can, just a quick, easy way to jump into this data, see what posts are resonating the most with our audience. So next up on this list is our researching list, which basically means for brainstorming outlines and drafts. So if there's a card from the article ideas list that maybe someone's team wants to write about, they can just take the card, drag it right over to the writing list, and then they can add themselves to the card to assign themselves. This way we know who is going to be writing the blog post. Of course, you can also just, if you have an idea that you're going to, writing meant to go to researching. There we go. If you have an idea for something you want to start thinking about or brainstorming, you could always just create a card. Top 10 productivity tips, and create that card and add yourself to it. So as mentioned earlier, we copy checklists for each blog post to make sure that we have a consistent process. And so to copy a checklist to, say, this card, I can simply click checklist, copy from, the card title was blogging checklist. I put a little asterisk here just as a little workaround to make sure that this is always at the top. Little hint for you. And then I can add this checklist to my card. So if your blog has categories, it might be useful to create a label for each category and apply the appropriate label to each new card. This will add an additional layer of visual data to a card and allows you to filter a board by labels so that you can quickly surface the types of posts in your pipeline. So I'm going to add this label to this card. If I wanted to create a new label, I can simply create a new label. I can just, whatever I'm going to name it, pick a color, and create. I can apply it to this card or not. One thing I want to actually mention with the labels too is, as you can see, we have a guest post label. While we do have a separate guest post board, which I will get to later, for any posts that are guest posts, which I can filter for. It's just a way to keep them in our pipeline, so that we can see in our internal pipeline where these posts are in the writing and editing and publishing process. But anyway, it's really useful to use labels. For instance, if I want to see productivity posts that we have coming up, there's a lot of productivity posts in the pipeline, or any new product news that we're working on, I can filter for those. Of course, I can also filter for specific writers to see, if anyone maybe has a lot going on, or maybe could use a pitch of a story to write. So when it comes to brainstorming and outlining a post, we encourage writers to use kind of whatever tool they prefer, whether that's adding an outline to the card's description or by attaching an Evernote note to a card with the Evernote Powerup. So luckily, it's really exciting. Trello can act as basically a platform for a lot of your favorite tools, and those are via Powerups. As mentioned with Google Drive, also we have Evernote and a bunch of others, which I'll demonstrate. But so if I like to kind of take notes on the subway on my way to work, might be writing that in Evernote. I can either attach a note from Evernote, or I can quickly just create a card. By default, it'll be named the title of the card. I can create a new note, write on my Trello card, and now I can work on that. If you prefer just working on the Trello card, you can always edit the description of the card. And I can save that, and I can just take notes here. I can also we allow markdown formatting in the card description. So if maybe you want to take a bullet pointed list of notes for your ideas, translations, staff, 24/7 support. I can take notes here. Really, whatever works for you. It's also if you're working on maybe you're interviewing someone for for your blog post. It's really easy to let me go back here. It's really easy to attach any files to your to the cards that you're working on. So, for instance, if I have an interview recording, I could just drag that right onto a card. And now I can, go back and reference this MP3 of someone I interviewed, or perhaps for this Lonely Planet case study, maybe I want to just make a note of some of their resources. I can always just attach links to cards. Can name this whatever I want and attach it. And this way, just any content that I need that I'm using in my researching, writing, outline writing process, I can just have it accessible from anywhere, from right on my card for that article. So once I've done all the research, then I can move my card over to my writing list. So for instance, I'll move this card over here. And at this point, I usually like to add a due date to the card, since we have a pretty good idea as to when the blog post will be written and ready for publishing. So to add a due date to a card, I can just open the card, click due date, and then I can pick when this will be ready. So I say should be done with this June 16th. And I can save that. This is great because it'll give me a notification, 24 hours before the card is due. Just in case any last minute things, make sure it's all ready and laid out for publishing. But one thing that's really great about adding due dates to card is that every Trello board includes a free calendar, and it's the calendar Powerup, which I currently have enabled right here. And it provides a link on your board that displays all your cards with due dates on them in a calendar view. So this is really great because you can kind of get a different perspective on when posts are due, when they're going to be published. And if I decide that I want to move something around, it'll automatically update on the back of the card. So my due date will automatically open. I can also view cards in a week view and see what list these cards are on and everything. Also, what's really great about the calendar is that every calendar has an iCal feed. And so by enabling the iCalendar feed on a calendar, it can be imported to any third-party calendar, such as Google, Outlook, Sunrise, or Apple. So simply just copy this link and then import that into any external calendar if I want to just keep track of how this content is working with any, if there's any conflicts with any other campaigns, or just, keeping all my tasks and everything in one place. So when it comes to actually writing the actual blog post, we prefer that everyone on our team creates a Google Doc for the post because of the accessibility and collaborative editing of content it facilitates. So like creating an Evernote note, I can simply, if I've already started a document somewhere else, I can, attach it from Google Drive. Or I can just simply create and attach a new document or anything right here. But since I'm writing a blog post, I'm going to create a new Google document. And now I can just hop right into Google Docs and I can start writing my post. So we prefer to have the more nuanced editing of a post take place in the Google Doc, while higher level discussion about the goals, audience, and scope of the post would take place in the comments section of the Trello card. So maybe like I'll be asking my editor or my content manager, do you know anyone we can interview for this? Anything higher level conversations that I'm going to have, and this will ping Amy, who can then respond. Maybe making sure that the blog post is effective, that it's on message, etc. And then the Google Doc is maybe more about editing the nitty gritty details of like punctuation or just use of tense, etc. So once we're done writing our blog posts, at this point bring it into the editing stage. So I'm just going to add this card to this list. You can add it wherever, depending how you want to prioritize your cards. Maybe new cards go at the top or new cards go at the bottom. And you might want to add your editor to the card at this point. This way they'll be notified that you're ready for them in the editing process. And then they can take it from there and collaborate with you in the Google Doc to edit the post. This is also the point in where we start thinking about design and stuff, and the overall layout of the post. And so once the doc is all edited and everything, our next step is to move it over to the graphics section, where we can rope in anyone on our design team by dragging them and adding them to this card as well. And then they can start working on graphics. So there's a couple ways that we like to attach graphics to cards. There's a couple options. First of all, you could totally just, if your designer is working on a blog post, they can simply drag and drop files right onto a card, and they'll automatically be uploaded. As you see here, there's an image for the card. This is called a card cover, and we like to kind of make the header image for the post. Make the header image for the post the card cover, just because it gives a little more visual fun, and it makes it easier to recognize which post. But you can also attach stuff from directly from your computer, or you can through Google Drive, Dropbox, or Box, or OneDrive. Also, if you organize all of your visual assets and all your design assets in Google Drive or in a shared place like Dropbox, you can use the Google Drive Powerup, let's say. If I have a folder of images, I can select that and load them right into my post. And then anyone can just go and hop right into Google Drive and access those images. This is also really great for creating a way to just provide feedback on the images for the post and the design that's occurring. As mentioned earlier, we have Box if you use that, and Dropbox to attach folders just like the Google Drive Powerup, and they'll display in a similar fashion. So anyway, once the graphics are done, the post is ready to be laid out in our CMS, which for us is WordPress. So we'd probably be checking things off as we go. Blog post is copy edited, and then it'd be moved over to the ready for layout. And at this point, it'd be the responsibility of the content manager to make sure that everything on this checklist has been taken care of. So, all the links in the post are ready, images are attributed. Want to make sure we're ready to promote something. And for us specifically, because we use Trello boards a lot in our posts, just make sure all those sample boards are set to public so that if someone wants to make a copy of one, they'll be able to. I guess there's one quick thing I want to mention, a little tip here, is that as you can see, while I've been adding members of my team to cards for each step of the process to notify them um, and assign them to their task when it comes to their list, it's also possible to subscribe to a list and get notifications for actions that occur on that list. So let's say you're the graphic designer and you want to make sure that anytime a card gets moved to this list, you want to be notified just because maybe someone will forget to add you. You can always subscribe to the list. And now you get a notification for every action that occurs on that list. So next time someone drags a card over here, I'll be notified that this card has been moved to this list. It's just one more way to stay in the loop, in the process. So once a post is published on the blog, we move it to the published list, and then we promote it on all of our social channels as well as our newsletters, etc. And I'm sure going into the whole marketing and promoting stuff could be its own webinar. But real quick, we use the Twitter Powerup at this point to keep an eye on how well the blog post is performing, as well as to get an idea as to what kinds of copy and language might resonate best with our audience. So here you can see I can attach a Twitter link, a URL from a tweet right to a card. For example, I can open a new tab. And I could just take a tweet. And now I can attach this card and just kind of see, maybe what titles might have what blog content might be great for evergreen content. Maybe what language is best and how we can optimize titles for SEO or for evergreen content. And sometimes, we will also use, because Twitter does facilitate shorter messaging, we might use this Powerup and see what works best for when we're laying out newsletter copy or other mediums. And so that's basically our workflow for our internal editorial calendar. As I mentioned earlier, we do work with guest bloggers. They're not on this internal calendar, internal board, so we have a separate guest blogger board. And as you can see, our guest contributor board is a more simplified version of our internal editorial calendar. We had all approved guest contributors to this board to collaborate with us. And we frequently source guest bloggers from active members of the Trello community, writers that inspire us, or through a call for open submissions. And for anyone that wants to submit to the blog, we use Jotform. And so basically we have this little form that writers can include information about themselves and their pitches, and why they'd want to write for the Trello blog, etc. And so when they submit this form to us, we get an email, forwarded to us. And what we like to do is, to vet once someone's been vetted, and we're going to work with this blogger. Going back to the original board, you can see that we have this guest bloggers list where we kind of keep track of their content, their contact information, etc., and who's who. So what I usually do is every Trello board has its own unique email address. And so I could just automate this process a little bit. But every time I get a new guest blogger that I want to work with, I could just forward that email right to my Trello board. And now I have that data right here, so I just have all that information I can reference from my Jotform right on a Trello card, their email address, their contact information. And then, you might also want to get like bio pics, headshots, etc. Just so you have a good repository of all the guest bloggers you're working with. So going back to our guest board, when we decide to work with someone, we also add them to the board here. And so you can add them, guest blogger at Trello.com. You can add them to the board via email address. And if they're not already a Trello member, once they sign up for Trello, they'll be able to collaborate on the board. So now if someone provided a pitch that we liked, let's see, what was one of those great pitches? I love this pitch, the secrets of walking while chewing gum and patting your head. So let's say we can add a new card. Then I can add my new guest blogger right to that card. We also have a list of pitches that we've kind of written that any guest blogger can claim. So if any guest blogger saw something that they wanted to write about, they can add themselves to the card and move it over to the claimed list. I didn't mention earlier, but we do have this resources list as well. Mainly just to show some successful past posts that we've had in the blog, just so that our guest bloggers get an idea of the tone and voice that we try and go for with Trello, so they can quickly, reference any past posts that we've written that have done really well. And also, so now once someone's your team's running their post, they've claimed their post, you'd want to maybe recommend. Let me enable the Google Drive Powerup here. And you can allow your guest writers to add Google Drive documents, which is just like the other main board. Good way to just be able to collaborate in a Google document instead of on the back of a card. And then they can move things along in the process. I'd recommend also, if you're the one in charge of managing guest bloggers, to subscribing to, say, this draft attached list, just because someone might, there might be oversight and they might not add you to a card once the draft is attached. So maybe you want to just, always be in the loop when something's ready for editing and review. So it's good to just subscribe to this list as well, just so that anytime one of your guest writers moves a card there, you're going to get notified. And then from there, we move the cards along in a pipeline similar to how we'd move them on the internal board. One last tip is we copy the Trello card from the guest board. And as I mentioned earlier, see we have a corresponding card on our internal board. And what we can do is we can link to that card on the guest blogging board. So to do that, all I have to do is just copy the link here, paste it here, and save it. And now just if anyone wants to reference the original card on the guest blogging board, they can go right to that. That's just another handy way to make sure that everything stays organized. And so basically, that wraps up my presentation on kind of how we use Trello to manage our collaborative editorial calendar. It's a pretty simple but effective workflow. So I'm going to get the Q&A session going in just a moment, and focusing on questions about these boards first. So if you have any questions, you can enter them in the GoToWebinar box, and I'll make sure to address as many as possible in the half hour we have remaining. But if you have to leave the webinar now and have questions, or if you'd rather ask your questions in private, feel free to email us at support@trello.com, and we'll be glad to answer them all for you. And so let's see. I'm just going to hop into some questions here. First question is, what happens to cards without a due date in the calendar view? So the cards without a due date will not show up in the calendar. So for instance, this top card, a case study on the CEO of Duolingo, doesn't have a due date yet, maybe because we're not sure when it would be published or what we're planning. And so as you can see, there's no card for it. Once I add a due date, I added today's due date just to show you. Now you can see that the card's here. And this is actually a new filter feature we just added. You can sort cards for null values. So if you want to see maybe what cards don't have any due dates and you're planning your schedule, you can just go into the filter and click has no due date and see all those cards. As I said, we've established the process that once we're writing, we add the due dates here, so you're not going to see any cards here without due dates. But just in case, maybe something made it to your editing list and you hadn't assigned a due date to it, you could be able to surface that really quickly with the has no due date filter. You could also see what cards aren't assigned to anyone yet or hasn't been labeled. So let's see, someone asked, is there a way to view all boards in one team on a calendar? So currently there's no team calendar in Trello, but as I mentioned earlier with the calendar Powerup, by enabling the iCalendar feed and importing this feed for this board into a third-party calendar like Sunrise, Google Calendar, Apple, or Outlook, etc., any calendar that takes an iCal feed, you can sum all your boards in one, or aggregate all your boards in one calendar view by just importing each feed for each board that you use. And let's see. Does everyone on the team need to add the calendar Powerup, or does the Powerup just get added to the board? Great question. So any Powerups that are enabled universally for the team. And just to go over the calendar Powerup, the card aging Powerup, which kind of gives let's see, kind of like a aging pirate map effect, and the voting Powerup, which allows team members or members of the board to upvote cards. That might be good if maybe you want to get feedback on, from your team about like what articles we should work on next. You can simply enable that. You can vote on a card down here, and you can see who voted for things. Anyway, so those three, the voting, the calendar, and the card aging, come with every Trello board. They're free Powerups. The rest of these Powerups are all for our business class service, and which allows you to turn Trello more into a platform for all your centralized hub for all your favorite apps, and incorporating them into your collaborative workflow. But going back to the original question, yeah, an enabled Powerup is enabled for everyone that is on the board that is a part of your team. Let's see, can you share your checklists? It's not possible to share checklists, aside from like checklists are board specific. What you could do is you could like maybe you could copy this card with a checklist, and maybe there's like a different board you wanted to put it on, like my guest blog post board. So I want to share it with that board. I could always like copy it to there, my resources position 2, create the card. And now as you see, there's a copy of this over here. And now I can add that checklist to any card on this board. Let's see, follow-up question. Is there a template for your editorial template for others? Yes. Let me actually share a link to that board. I'm going to share it in the chat. Apologize, the GoToWebinar meeting box is freezing a little bit. Okay. Oh. Here we go. If you go to trello.com/inspiration, I just put in the chat window. You can see a copy of that board. Let me just see if I can pull up the direct link to it real quick. In fact, if you're looking for more workflows, I'd recommend checking out trello.com/inspiration. But this is a whole bunch of boards that we've collected from either our internal boards or from the Trello community. If I go to, and there's a bunch of tags so content management, this is a version of the board. So I'm gonna see if I can paste that right into the chat window here. Looks like the GoToWebinar box's meeting is freezing up a little bit, so there you go, it should be in the chat window now. Okay, going back to the questions. How do you handle multiple formats needed for distribution of posts? Do you have marketing messages, social media, email, copy in this Trello board, or are they organized in another area? How do you make this easily accessible without overcomplicating things? Okay, that's a great question, and probably something I'm going to cover in a future webinar. But we do have different marketing boards for different things. So social media board, webinar board, for emails that we're working on. Our bi-monthly emails. We have boards for that. So we organize those in their own boards, and try and keep things separate a bit. So this is just this board is really just for organizing our blog's editorial calendar. And then we might do something similar for other boards, like for social media or for newsletters, etc. This way, it doesn't overly complicate things. That's just what we found works best for us. It depends on how much content you're putting out. You might want to have all your marketing content assets on one board, if that works for you. But we found for us, just letting people join the boards that they're going to be working on has been most effective for us. Let's see, next question. Do you ever archive cards from your published posts? If you archive them, do they disappear from your calendar view? We don't really archive the cards on this. We just kind of have an ongoing history. I mean, after a while, I guess, if you have over 1,000 cards on a board or 500,000 cards, it can kind of slow down performance. So we haven't hit that threshold yet. But yeah, you might want to archive cards. That will remove them from the calendar view though. So, I mean, what you could do is you could always move, once maybe something's published, you could always have a separate board for published posts. So maybe, you could even create a new board, a new list on each board for maybe each month. So let's say, hypothetically here, I can go create a board, published. And so maybe I can put, May 2016, and I can enable the calendar. Okay, and then I could always, take this this post, and I can move it over to published. And now it's no longer on this board, so it gets it out of the way, but it would be on this board, and I could view all my past published work all in one place. So you might maybe want to do something like that, depending on what works for you. Some people really love to see like a nice long done list, just to be able to look at all those great things that you've worked on. But if that clogs your mental space by having too many things on one board, then yeah, try considering moving it to another board if you don't want to archive cards. So let's see, is everything that you've shown on this webinar part of the free portion of the app? If not, what is included versus extra costs? Okay, so as mentioned earlier, the free power-ups that I've shown were the calendar and card aging and voting. The ones like Twitter, Evernote, Google Drive, Slack, Appearance, etc. Those are part of the business class offering. And if you want to learn more about that, you can always go to trello.com/business class, and you can learn about our centralized Powerups platform and how you can better organize your team with Trello Business Class. Someone asked, what service did you say you used to find writers? Oh, we find our writers mostly through um, either observing people, like social listening, or people that reach out to us. Maybe someone's written a really cool blog post, a productivity post, or a cool post about Trello, and we'll often ask them to write for us. Sometimes we'll just put out calls. So maybe we'll link this drop form to like a Twitter post or a Facebook post or on the blog, saying like, hey, we're looking for guest contributors, fill out this form, and we might have you write for us. We don't pay a service for any writers. Usually, most of the writers are people that we really admire, that we've seen write great content, and we ask them to contribute to our blog as well. Someone asked, how can we subscribe to a list? Oh yeah, just in case you missed that, you can click this little drop down here, subscribe. You can tell if you're subscribed to something because there'll be a little eye icon right there. You can also subscribe to an entire board in the boards menu. I will say though that it could become overwhelming with notifications, but if that works for your workflow, it's always great. There are a couple boards that I always do subscribe to. Otherwise, lists. And then also, if maybe you want to just subscribe to a card, maybe you don't want to add yourself to the card, but you want to get, let me find a card that I'm not on. So for instance, this card I'm not on. I'm not assigned to it. I haven't been added to it. But maybe I want to just keep track of its progress or updates to it. Then I can subscribe to the card. So as you can see, I'm still not added as a member of the card. But if this card were to move to the next list by someone else, not by me, obviously, I would get a notification for that. So that's just one way, another way you can kind of keep track of specific items on a board without necessarily adding yourself to that card. Let's see. Oh, someone asked, how do notifications appear? And is a notification emailed to the assigned individual? Yeah, so notifications would appear right here. And I could probably trigger a notification real quick just so you can see what that's like. If you just hold on for 1 second. Hang on 1 second, just so I could demonstrate what the notifications look like. Okay. So as you can see, I used a different Trello account to trigger one in this count. A notification icon appears here. And you can see exactly what the notification was, what card it was on, and what board it was on. And then if you have you also get I don't have anything here, but you'd also get a notification in your email if you have your email settings turned on. And real quickly, just so you could set notification email frequency if you want it instantly, periodically, or if you don't want to get any emails at all. If it periodically, then if you get a bunch of notifications over the course of maybe a few hours, they'd be included all in one batch email. And let's see, do we have any other questions? Looks like we have a couple more minutes. I don't know if anyone has any last minute questions. Be glad to answer them. Oh, there we go. Okay, a couple last minute questions here. Once again, thanks everyone for joining today. It's been really great, and like I said, I'm going to be sending a recording this out. But let's see. Someone said, "What is the best use for stickers?" So I didn't really touch on stickers, but stickers are a fun way to add, more visual data to your board, really you can use them if you want. Maybe like you have a bunch of article ideas and you just want to quickly give some thumbs up or thumbs down onto various cards, or maybe when a post is published, you can put a gold star on it. We don't really, we don't really have any have any necessarily best practices for stickers. Really, just meant to be allowed to add some visual fun. I think like stickers. I love using stickers to just you know, just make work the workday a little more enjoyable with my team. Just by adding something silly to it. If you have Trello Gold or Business Class, you can also create your own custom stickers. What's really fun is you could create animated GIF stickers, so that can be pretty exciting for your board. Um, let's see. Yeah, but I'd say just stickers. Yeah. If you come up with some really cool constructive ways to use them, would love to hear it. Definitely share with us. Going back to the blog post performance, here's another question. Do you use some kind of power up to get updates on performance in real time? No, we actually do not have a power up for that at the moment that we use. We usually just, for blog post performance, we either we use WordPress stats and Google Analytics, and then we just kind of keep that data all in a spreadsheet. We also keep track of social shares, etc. Let's see, someone asks, if you have multiple boards that the same person is assigned to, can you filter across more than one board to show everything they're assigned to them? There's a couple ways to do that. You can, if you're talking about you personally, there's the My Cards page. So if you click your name and click Cards, so you can see all the cards that you're assigned, sorting by board, or you could sort by due date. Another option is if you have Trello Business Class. Let me go to my webinars team. You can sort. You can view the activities. This is a business class feature, but you can view the amount of boards someone is on, and you can view all their cards. So I could see also any team members' cards as well, which is really handy. And let's see, I believe you could do a search. So you could do like @me and search across all your boards. You could then you can see like what is open. There's a bunch of search parameters you can use. So that might be another useful way to search for cards. But for you personally, I'd recommend, if it's just you looking for your own cards across boards, I'd recommend the My Cards page. And then if you have business class, as I mentioned, you can view team members through your team members panel for your business class team. Let's see, someone says, let me go back to my board real quick. Saw on Pinterest that typing Q will only show cards assigned to you. Is that true? Yep. That's one of the cool little shortcuts. If you hit Q, it just brings up the filter just for you. So you can see all your assigned cards. And if you actually hit the question mark key on your keyboard, we have a whole bunch of other keyboard shortcuts. Too many to go into right now, but it definitely can save a lot of time and boost some productivity, some Trello productivity with the keyboard shortcuts. And let's see, will this webinar be recorded? Yep, I've been recording it, and barring any technical difficulties, a copy of this webinar will be emailed out to everyone tomorrow. So let's see, finally, does Trello offer tailored tutorials for teams? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. You could, if you want to like kind of, let me share this link. If you're curious about business class and how it might like work with your team, you can request a demo, and maybe we can help tailor that to you. I'm having a couple issues with GoToMeeting. Let me see. My GoToWebinar control panel is freezing up here, so let me see if I can add this link to request a demo and see how you can use Trello with your team and how all the different power-ups can apply. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Not sure exactly what the technical issue is. Okay, let me try this one more time. Try and paste this link in here. Sorry, the GoToWebinar box is giving me some chat box is giving me some freeze ups, as I mentioned. Okay. In the meanwhile, while I'm working out adding this link, do guest bloggers need business class? That depends on what you want. If you want to, if you're guest bloggers, if you want them to be able to use all the Powerup features, then you'd want to add them to your business class team. They don't need it. So for instance, you could still share a Google Drive document with them, and you could add them to it. You wouldn't get any of the metadata involved with it. They wouldn't be able to see that, so they wouldn't be able to access any of the. They wouldn't be see all the power ups that you're using in the same way. They also a couple other business class features, like if they're not a member of your team, you wouldn't be able to see anything from the team page. Like for instance, we don't add our guest bloggers to our team just because we don't need to use those power ups with them. But we use power ups, internally. Um, but that doesn't mean that you necessarily would want to, you wouldn't necessarily need to add them to your business class team if you don't want to. All right, just trying to get this link posted in here. There we go. Okay, in the chat. That if you'd like to see a business class demo, you can sign up there, and kind of get a more tailored demo for your tailored tutorial for your team. Our sales team would be glad to help you out with that. Anyway, it looks like there's no more questions. I hope I answered everyone's questions. If you have any other follow-up questions or anything or any feedback, you can always reach out to us support@trello.com. I really thank everyone for coming out today. It's been a lot of fun. I hope you learned something. And stay tuned to trello.com/webinars. We'll be covering a lot of cool, exciting stuff moving forward. So thanks a lot, everyone, and we hope you have a great day.